Welcome to the Into AI Safety podcast, where we discuss the challenges facing the field of AI safety and those who work within it. This show aims to provide the foundation and resources needed to get up to speed on safe and ethical AI. As always, I am your host, Jacob Hames. During the podcast, you may hear this sound, which denotes that I have included at least one link related to the content that preceded the sound. The purpose of this is to allow for citations and providing resources without breaking the flow of conversations. As per usual, items mentioned during asides will have links in the show notes as well. This interview was recorded August 27th, 2025, and asides were recorded September 7th, 2025. Hey everyone, if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably heard of BlueDot Impact and their AI safety courses. Actually, I read through a much earlier version of one of their courses when I was first investigating the field of AI safety, was a cohort lead for multiple iterations of their course, and my involvement with the governance course was a major catalyst for this podcast. Joining me today is none other than Li-Lian Ang, hire number 1 and product manager for BlueDot Impact. In addition to being the badass that she is at work, Li-Lian is the co-founder and lead editor of the Humans of Minerva podcast, which shares the lives of people at her alma mater, Minerva University, and she's the author of Purple is the Noblest Shroud, a work of historical fiction. We first met when she dropped into one of my sessions and participated in all of the remaining ones after that in order to really understand the service and experience that BlueDot is providing. We'll get into the development of BlueDot's courses and where they're headed, the strategies and threat models informing their current trajectory, elitism and accessibility in AI safety, bridging AI ethics and safety, and so much more. As a final note, before we start, there is a longer version of this episode on the Kairos.fm Patreon. If you're interested in hearing some of the less AI safety relevant portions, like Li-Lian's first impressions of me, as well as further discussion on various items, check it out. Now, let's get into it with one of the most pleasant people to talk to I know in AI safety, Li-Lian Ang.
Hi, my name is Li-Lian. My pronouns are she, her, and I was the first hire at BlueDot.
Okay, awesome. And then just to kick things off right, in one sentence, what is unique about BlueDot Impact's approach to AI safety, and why does that matter?
BlueDot is placing its bet on people, where we're really invested in getting more people trained up and actually doing the work that makes AI go well. And instead of trying to do the work ourselves, which is very, very tempting, we believe that there needs to be just way more people working on AI safety. And what we want to do is enable hundreds of thousands of more people to be working on the problem.
Cool. So I want to take a step back and just discuss go over, I guess, how we met, because we knew each other before this recording, actually. And I was a facilitator with BlueDot, so I helped facilitate their courses. And in one of my courses, 2 weeks in or something, so we've already done the main introductions, but then a week or two in, Li-Lian comes in, and I know who she is, and so I'm like, I wonder why she's here. And I just asked, why are you here, basically. And she said she just wanted to participate in the course and understand more about how it worked. And then she participated in the rest of the cohort with the rest of my group. And yeah, it was really awesome to have her incorporated into the course. I think it was a really awesome experience for the other participants as well, because they got to see someone else just engaging with the material that had helped define it and set up BlueDot in the first place. But I guess what did you learn during the course? Did you have any key takeaways from it?
I think I really wanted to build my vocabulary around AI safety. I think one of the problems, or maybe like
Mm.
one of the features of this field is that there's a lot of jargon floating around, particularly with like more like technically inclined like air safety people. There's so many papers, there's so many words, and like
Yep.
because I work in LISA, which is like the London Initiative for Safe AI, it's a
Another
co-working
acronym.
space. Another acronym, very helpful. Another co-working space where lots of these like alignment researchers kind of come together. Everybody speaks in this lingo, which makes
Right.
it really hard to participate in conversations, and also to like contribute, I think, to BlueDot when we make decisions about like what to do with the courses. And I think because you were really good at explaining things and explaining things like very simply, I was able to have like almost like a dictionary in my brain of like, what are all these terms and what do they mean?
Yeah, I could talk about the use of jargon all day, but in this case, I think that we should focus more on like the course. I guess one other thing that I'm interested in from your perspective is like you took the course, you've learned, you sort of are able to engage more in these conversations with your coworkers. Did anything change for you as a result of the course?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why I took the course was also this like concept of like eat your own dog food, which is like if you're gonna make a product, you should use your actual product so you know what are all like the pain points and like all the good and the bad of it, and you can't like hide it behind some walls. You like feel the pain of the user like on a day-to-day basis, and you feel like more motivated to solve the thing because then you have to do it. Like I have to be there every week.
Right. No, absolutely.
Like spending all this time learning this thing, and I want to make sure that I derive value out of it. And like maybe I'm like slightly different from the profile of a person who would be actually taking the course, which is people who want to do actual like safety research on a more like technical level. But I did feel like at the end of the course when I took it the first time round, I took this course twice. The first time round I was like, I don't feel like I really learned the things I wanted to learn. I feel like I had a lot of knowledge and information thrown at me, but I'm not sure whether I know how to really apply this stuff, or like whether I feel like I know what to do with this knowledge. And I think this is like some of the early stages of what guided how we designed the project phase, which is the last 4 weeks of the courses, where there are like 8 weeks of discussion and then 4 weeks where you try to apply this. And we really tried lots of different ways to make this project phase more useful to people, where it's like translating your learnings into something useful, where it's like also being able to use this product to like land you a new role or to like steer you in some direction to do some useful work. And I think without doing the course, I maybe wouldn't have like felt this pain as much.
Gotcha. So yeah, there are two items within that I want to pick apart just a little bit. The first is you mentioned like maybe the course, at least one of the earlier versions, was maybe more focused towards someone who wants to do like a full-on career pivot, or at least like a positional or responsibilities change. But I think that there's actually a lot of value in the courses from the perspective of someone who is just wanting to a term that's been used frequently is like AI literacy. I think just getting a better understanding of that makes AI safer as well, like inherently, because you know, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing XYZ with this system because that might be, providing too much, essentially inherent trust into the system. I'm assuming that that something will happen as a result. If it doesn't, what are the consequences? Oh, they're significant. Maybe I shouldn't do this. That sort of thinking I think is very valuable as well for non, I guess like career shifters.
Well, I'll say something on the first part, which is about
Yeah, please.
Yeah, how like it's really useful for people to understand like the risks. And I think this is like a thing that many people in their application form to these courses, that's what most people want. They're like, I want to, like, I see this as a really important issue. I want to be able to learn about this. I don't know how I'm going to apply this, but I think this is really important for me to learn. And I think because we wanted to serve like lots of different kinds of people, but we only had one product, it became really difficult for us to like make it more accessible to people without like diluting the value of the course like the course is made for people who want to do alignment research, and like there's also a bunch of people there who are mostly there to learn about the issue, which is also really important. Then it kind of like makes the product itself kind of like not serve its purpose, which is why we started doing this.
Your user identity, I guess, like use case is persona. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Your user persona is
exactly
too broad.
Yes. And that's like one of the problems as well with the course is like we didn't have like a profile of person. It became like it got like increasingly broader over time, which is why we tried to design this like future of AI course, which is more meant for people like that who are like, I think this is a really important issue and I want to learn about this, but I don't really know like heads or tails where to start. And so like, oh, maybe there's like something else we can do about that. So there's a lot of like thinking as well, like from BlueDot on like what we can do to serve all these different kinds of populations. And I think it's like a question that we're like actively grappling with.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that's a complex problem, especially earlier on in this subspace when there's very little infrastructure that exists.
Exactly. And also just like very little clarity on like what it means to succeed. I think there's a lot of talk on like need to prevent certain risks. We need to like prevent this bad thing from happening. But like what is the actual thing that we're building towards? Like what is the positive future that we're trying to like steer humanity towards and that we're trying to achieve? And this is a really, really difficult question. Yeah. So Dewi, who is our like one of the founders of BlueDot, he went away for like several months and was like, okay, somebody in the field must have thought of a plan for how we make AI go well. So he went and talked to like every single person he could think of who might have a plan. I think this was like 50 plus different people. And then he kind of like came together with a version for like what could be BlueDot's plan for how we make AI go well, which is the defense in depth model.
We never really got back to this, but it's a core strategy for work in high-risk domains, and as a result is being increasingly discussed in AI safety, so let's go over it real quick. Defense in depth originated as a military tactic in like 3000 BC. The core insight is that failures in a single defense strategy often do happen, so spreading your resources across many lines of defense which have independent failure modes will be more robust than having a single defense strategy. This approach is often called the Swiss cheese method after a popular visualization technique used to describe it. We can imagine that each line of defense is like a single slice of Swiss cheese. While the intervention provides some coverage, there are inevitably weaknesses or holes in the approach. However, each slice of cheese has unique failure modes. Some may overlap, but if we layer enough slices of cheese, the likelihood of an attack making it past each layer is incredibly small. This tactic has been standard in modern high-risk domains such as nuclear power plant design and procedures, aviation, and more recently in cybersecurity. A blog from BlueDot on their strategy, as well as a paper on defense in depth more broadly, are linked in the show notes.
Which is kind of like giving some indication for like, this is kind of like the model for the future that we want to build. And for us to build this, BlueDot doesn't want to just be a course provider, like teaching people things. We want to be like an impact accelerator.
Okay.
Yeah. With the course is like a tool to enable people.
What does that mean to you, I guess? Because when I hear that, like, it sounds interesting, but also, like, a part where I also, work, has a similar, ideal, I guess, is the way to put, like mission or what have you, of, being an impact accelerator. So but I think we can get more specific if we're not trying to, like, reduce it to a pithy slogan. So what does that mean to you?
Yes. So for us, what this means is that there are specific outcomes that we want to achieve in the world. So for example, with like AI governance, like what does it mean to actually succeed? And maybe part of this means that the US and China need to have some like good, like some dialogue around AI and need to like agree on some terms. What are the things that are blocking progress on making this happen? What is like the key bottleneck that is preventing this? Maybe there's not enough spaces for like dialogue and you need like some amalgamation of like dialogue between leaders and dialogue between researchers, and there's like some work that needs to be done there. Who are the people who need to do this work? Okay. And what kinds of skills or trainings or opportunities do they need to have access to be able to do this? And how can we use some experience, whether it is a course, whether it's a briefing, whether it's a workshop, a conference, some intervention that can enable these people to have the right skills, knowledge, and opportunities to be able to do the work that actually leads towards the positive outcomes that we want. So less of thinking of the course as the end-all, be-all, but more of like the instrument, and the actual metric of success is whether we actually achieve this outcome in the world, which is somewhat ambitious, granted, given that we've mostly been running courses before. But I think at least at that period, it's more of like building the engine that is BlueDot, being able to spin up these courses really quickly and like do all like the operational things really fast, so that now it's kind of like a negligible cost to us to run any of these things because we have all this infrastructure that we've built internally.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so I see a gap so far in what you have described. Like you have the course, and the course sort of takes you from a baseline and says, okay, well now in your specific context, based on what the course is doing and the target audience for that course, we're going to bring you to a level of understanding where now you can meaningfully contribute in some way. And then at some point there is like they meaningfully contribute, and that is more specific now than it was in the past, because again, it's like instead of just saying here's a bunch of knowledge, it's here's a bunch of knowledge that gets you to that point where you can meaningfully contribute.
So I think the difference here is that we're trying to approach the goal of the course more from like working backwards from the outcome, where like with the US-China dialogue example, where like if the outcome is like having more like platform or space for the US and China leaders to have reasonable conversations around like some norms to be set, or like some agreements on like how they will build AI. We would be targeting people then, or like sourcing people for the courses who would be able to actually do that work. And then we would be designing this training that is for these people to actually do that work. And then in the design of this course, making sure that the outcome that they get from completing this experience is some like meaningful increase in their ability to actually contribute. So whether this means like giving them like seed funding to start an org that does some of this work, or placing them, helping them get hired in an org that needs their particular skill set, or connecting them with collaborators who need to work together with them to get something to happen. There's like a whole space of things that is more specific that we want to direct people to do. But I think this is only possible like once you have a really clear idea of like what you actually want to happen in the world, and like what is actually blocking progress on this, which I think is like the level of expertise and depth that BlueDot didn't have before and that we're building up more of now.
Gotcha. Okay. So one thing that I guess, at least my immediate thought, is this, while this does sound like very good, there's also a concern that this might be elitist almost, right? You're targeting people who are already quite experienced, is what it sounded like. And so does that mean that, anyone can't necessarily apply for those, or is very unlikely to get into those? And yeah, just I guess understanding that a bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess there are different like tiers of courses that we were planning to build. So we have like a tree diagram that I think illustrates this, where the top of the tree is our Future of AI course, which we've made it like more low touch but higher volume for anybody to be able to understand what is the benefits, risks of AI, what are the kind of like likely futures that we will have, and understand like what's currently being done and not currently being done in order to address those issues. And then from there, we hope that this gives anybody like a broad understanding of like what's happening, and then funneling that down towards more of our like level 2 overview style courses, which helps people steer themselves into like specific kinds of work that they could be doing. So for example, right now we're running an AGI strategy course, which is a course that helps people make sense of how different work fits into the bigger strategy of how to make AI go well. And that starts with mapping out like, what do you believe is a positive vision of the future that we should be striving towards? What are the threats to this vision? What are the ways that this threat is going to manifest? What are the things that we can do to prevent this threat from happening? Who needs to be doing this work? And then more importantly, like what can you do as an individual to start contributing to like making us move in the right direction? And then like after that, there's like other streams like AI governance for people who are like have a bit more of like a policy focus, technical AI CAT for more like technically savvy people, and like defensive engineering, which is another thing we call it, for people who are working on building interventions to prevent like to increase societal resilience against like threats from AI.
Gotcha.
So there's like
okay.
I think it's like there's maybe the more advanced courses could feel like slightly more like elitist in the sense of like it's targeting people with very specific skills, but I think it's because we have a very specific outcome for them. But then there are other courses I think that we plan to offer that are more for like people from other backgrounds to help them figure out how they can meaningfully contribute.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like after having that description as well, like there's that initial like layer of accessibility is, you know, really open to everyone. Says, let's understand what the risks are.
Yes.
And then if you decide, you know, this is an area I want to focus on, you can specialize into one of these other sort of streams, I guess.
Yeah, but I would like to think of it less like sequentially, like you have to like do a bunch of courses in order to like be ready. I think that would be like a failure mode of the course. Is like if people feel like, oh, I just gotta,
they have to do it to be ready.
Yeah, I want to do all the BlueDot courses and like rack up a bunch of like certificates and stuff. Is like not really the thing. Where I think we want to like as much as possible be empowering people to like not have to continue doing our courses if it's not necessarily, and just like go in the world and go and do the thing.
Gotcha. That makes sense as well. Yeah, no, that's definitely a better framing than how I initially said it. So also related, especially earlier on, is that in, you know, the AI safety space, and we touched on this earlier, but there's like a very specific mold for contributing to reducing AI risks that's sort of canonical, I would say. And it can cause people with very valuable skill sets to feel that their best method to contribute is to upskill significantly, like you're saying, like take the courses, like do the completionist, sort of all the BlueDot's or whatever, in technical research unrelated to their passions maybe or expertise, which allows that hard-earned experience and knowledge to just sort of fall by the wayside. And I saw this, I've seen this many times. This is not something that I'm just like saying, oh, this is theoretical. You know, I met multiple people that were in my cohorts in BlueDot when I was doing this, which was, you know, over a year ago at this point. But who were feeling like I don't have the kind of expertise that I need to be able to contribute meaningfully in this space, but I really want to. And when you examine what it is that they know, it's like, wait a second, you have 5 years of cybersecurity experience.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like, that's exactly what we need. What are you talking about? Or I have, you know, marketing experience at a top VC firm. It's like, wait, we also need that, right? Like there are, we need all types, right? To make sure that the AI safety goes well. And I guess you somewhat addressed this, but how does this influence your course design? Did you guys see this as a failure mode early on? How has it influenced your decisions in course design and like the platform and recruiting?
Yeah, so yeah, this is like a big issue I think that we clocked quite early on, when we offered AI alignment and AI governance course, it wasn't really meant to be a dichotomy of like, oh, these are the only two bodies of work. You're either like a technical person or you're not a technical person. I think it really was like hard for us as well to tell people like, no, there's like more to AI safety than just these two streams, without being able to tell people like what exactly are those things. And I think that now with the course portfolio that we've built, which I think a lot more comprehensive view of the things that we need to do, I think this is much less a failure mode, because it's targeting a much broader range of issues, which, and maybe like one thing that's useful to talk about is like, what are the actual threat models that BlueDot is most concerned about? Where I think a lot of people are also turned off from the AI safety field, or like AI safety in general, because there's a lot of talk about robots going rogue and killing everybody, which I'll admit, like when I first joined, this was not really, I did not completely buy this. I had to really, like really force myself to think about it and like make myself believe to like have this be. And then even then I still felt like surely there's like more to it.
Yeah.
Like than this being the harm. And I think like focusing on like rogue AI killing people is not like a helpful like explanation of what the risks are that will like help to get more people on board, and also to understand like what this technology is possible for. So I think like the three main like risks or like threat models that BlueDot is most worried about, like one is catastrophic terrorism. So like people, anybody using AI systems to like deploy like bioweapons, or like wreak havoc on like critical national infrastructure, or like do like mass like phishing attacks on people. Any actor. The second is like accelerated war. So people using it either as like an automated decision making, like in AI 2027, which is like a scenario of like what the world could look like, or just for like AI powered war machines, or for like destabilizing specific regimes and like causing civil wars to happen because of like propaganda and all these sorts of things. And then the third one being like power concentration that then leads to like increased authoritarian rule, or people losing their jobs and disconnecting the meaning between like people and work and money and all that sorts of like societal collapse, which I think then encompasses in a lot more like disentangling from rogue AI and like the world will explode and like all of humanity dies, into something that feels a lot more specific and like you can relate to and like actually understand.
For context, the more canonical AI safety risk is rogue AIs, when an AI system has become more intelligent than humans and then pursues its own goals, which result in our direct or indirect extinction or extreme subjugation, like basically Terminator or The Matrix. Setting aside the problematic framing of intelligence in the first place, this family of concerns requires a lot of speculation and is inherently nonspecific. For this reason, I do appreciate BlueDot's focus towards the more concrete risks of misuse, reduced oversight in high-risk contexts, and concentration of wealth and power. Yeah, I guess so. I'm outspoken about my views there. I don't think that, the rogue AI takeover kind of thing is as salient of a problem. And part of what I think is interesting about it is if we can address these other three problems that you discussed, we actually don't have to worry about the rogue AI one either. Like, even if you do believe in it, if we actually do robust engineering, if we actually have mitigation strategies in place for misuse, I really think that the risk essentially drops to zero, even if you do buy into the story of like rogue AI takeover.
I also don't think that like rogue AI is like a binary where like you have
that's true.
People using AI systems, and then you have like completely automated AI systems that are able to like take actions all on their own. But there's also like a whole spectrum between of like people using like AI systems that can do like a broad range of tasks depending on like how independent and how much access we give them to things. So I think like this false dichotomy, I think, also fuels a lot of like schisms, I think, between
Yeah.
people who have different conceptions of like what AI is able to do and like how likely this is, which is like frankly like quite unhelpful.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And maybe like relatedly, often this is like described as sort of an AI safety or AI alignment versus AI ethics. How do you discuss and bring up questions about AI ethics and bias and I guess some of the current issues that we're seeing in comparison to some of the, I guess, more traditional AI alignment concerns?
Yeah, I think for me it's been useful to like have a stated focus on like what Blue Dot is working on, where
Uh-huh.
like there are many different problems in the world that need to be solved. Like bias
Mm-hmm.
and discrimination are like parts of it, and these can come from frontier AI systems. They can also come from like people using these systems to create like apps and other things, and it can also be based on like how people then use like a completely like neutral app to then do bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Where like I think a lot of like bias and discrimination work in AI focuses on like the full stack of like all of these things from the user to like the actual like model itself. Whereas like Blue Dot's approach, I think thinking of AI risk is just focusing on the frontier AI, frontier model side of like the actual foundation models and the risks that come from that. And then thinking of like not just um, smaller scale harms, which are also important, but trying to think of like what are the most dangerous things that could happen that could be like irreversible kinds of harms, and how we can mitigate those things. So I don't think we're like saying that we don't care about all the other things, but it's a matter of like focus. And if we were going to focus on something, we're focusing on like this slice of the whole spectrum of AI usage and of all the risks that come with that. We're focusing on like the three star models that I mentioned before. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. How do you see? So, like, I personally see strong ties between a lot of these areas, so like the ethics, bias, privacy, those sorts of things,
Yes.
to specifically the third item you mentioned, which was like the
Power
use
concentration.
of these systems to boost authoritarian control and
Yeah.
concentration of
Yeah.
power. Um, what are your thoughts given what you just said and like putting that in context? How does that incorporate into your
Yeah.
perspective?
There's um a segment or a slice of like AI safety that's working on like decentralizing access to AI systems and
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out ways that we can do it in that's like safe, where you want to like democratize like who has access, both to like uh, who has a say in how these things are trained, what they're trained on, who can use them, and what they're being used for. And I think this
Mm-hmm.
is the section of AI safety that intersects maybe like the most with a lot of the talk on like bias, ethics, and discrimination.
Also related to this, because this is area for me is like particularly interesting as someone I personally identify. I mean, I say I'm an AI safety researcher, right? And I identify sort of uh, with the AI safety space, but then also I am very aligned with a lot of like the AI ethics, bias, and like privacy agendas, and would also say that I'm like within that space as well. And so
Yeah.
this area is particularly interesting to me because it's like bridging the gaps. So since so much work within AI safety, especially within those three areas that you guys are focused on, is based on a small slice of the internet, or society in a broader sense, is based in like a sort of less wrong, effective
Mhm.
altruism bubble, um, and I have some issues with like some of those spaces. I think it really creates like an echo chamber
Mhm.
uh, oftentimes. But so much of the resources you can reference are from that space. Given that that is the case, how do you ensure that your courses and what you're presenting remains accessible and as non-biased as possible, given the need that you the message that you're trying to convey is biased and necessarily, like, you have an agenda, so it has to be biased. But like ignoring that part, like what that you're wanting AI to go well. How do you go about doing this, and what are your thoughts there?
So I can speak to what some of our course leads have done in the past, so the people who designed the curriculum and the experience, where because we are trying to attract people who have specific skills to contribute, or backgrounds that is useful to do specific kinds of work, who may not necessarily be a part of the AI safety bubble. I think a lot of the people who apply to our courses would not say they know about AI safety, or they are a part of the AI safety community. And we also need to curate resources that then don't turn these people off from seeing from reading this, and also to expand our view on not all the best resources are written by the AI safety community, and we try really hard not to quote forum less wrong forum posts or EA forum posts, and as much as possible to look for other resources. And we do a pretty big call out to people who we know, who spend a lot of their time reading this, and ask them for what the best resources they have to recommend to us. And if we can't find them, a lot of our course leads just write resources themselves. They amalgamate a lot of the stuff that they've read into something that's more digestible and maybe shorter for our participants. But it is a thing that's actively being thought about by our course leads, historically, and also I would assume in the future.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think the other thing we also want to do is that I don't think, at least the way that we approach the curriculum, is not to force people to have a viewpoint. It's it's not BlueDot believes this, and we're trying to convince you to believe in this. It's more of this is the way, this is the facts that we found about the world, or the information that we have about the world. These are some different frameworks to think about this, and these are frameworks that different people have proposed. Given this information, how would you approach this, or then what are your thoughts about this? Compare. It's all about comparing and contrasting. This person says this and this person says that. What do you then think is the conclusion based on this information? And I think a lot of the exercises and activities are trying to help people to think for themselves. Obviously, we will be choosing readings, and we will have viewpoints of our own. But right. I think there's also a lot of effort that we put into finding opposing views as much as possible to make the argument that we're putting forward feel a lot more balanced, or at least reflective of the actual information that's in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, and I would say I agree with that. I thought the in general, I led one or two courses of the first versions of the intro to transformative AI course, which was a smaller test, I think, that you guys did at the end of 2024. And I think that course did a very good job of presenting, here's what people are thinking about, essentially. And it's not just here is our perspective on the risks, or here is this section of the internet's perspective on the risks.
Yes.
Okay. So last thing on this, and then I also want to go back to one other thing that you mentioned about frontier models, and just discussing that a bit more. But before we get to that, when I was doing research for this, and I was looking at research for this interview, and I was looking for essentially, what are people saying about AI safety. I found a paper titled AI Safety for Everyone that was recently, or somewhat recently, in Nature, and it critiqued the narratives used surrounding AI safety, particularly the overemphasis of existential risk, and it was outlining the drawbacks to this. And I'm curious what your thoughts are, given that we've talked about how, there was the alignment initially and the alignment course initially, and then the governance, and then, now you have a much broader sort of selection. Do you think that there was too much focus on existential risk in the past?
I think the issue is that we talked about it with like not good specificity, where we would just like hand-wavingly say like, oh, we're doing all this to prevent like human extinction, and we want like humanity to flourish or like to do well. But it's like very vague, fluffy terms that like don't mean anything to anybody, and just sounds very like doomery and like catastrophizing. It's like, what are you even talking about? Like I literally cannot see how we get from where we are today to like all like the world being like exploded or something. I think now that we have like way like more precise language on like these three outcomes are very bad, like having terrorist attacks at large scale, like everybody, like the second pandemic coming, like the
second one, only the second one.
Oh, sorry, the second one. Then the next one, I mean.
Okay.
The next one happening, like having like electricity grids go down like across like large swaths of places, like having war at a larger scale than we see now, like like authoritarian rules being cemented, and like people losing jobs. These are things that feel like a lot more tangible and help people to understand like what it is we mean when we talk about risks, and then give people more like surface area to actually engage in discussion, as opposed to seeing something very amorphous like we're all gonna die because AI is gonna kill everyone, which is like very difficult to debate against and has very little like ability for people to like talk about with any kind of substance or like engage with meaningfully. So I think that's the biggest shift for us, is like being more concrete, which I think has been like important.
You've outlined, like we don't want, more warfare, and we don't like use of AI in warfare, reducing oversight. We don't want, things that will actually instrumentally help people who are wanting to commit violent terrorist acts do that, right? The maybe a pushback that I have is, why the frontier models then? Because I personally don't see the frontier models as being the linchpin, I guess, in that I think it's different for the different sort of risks. But for warfare, like in Gaza, for example, I talked about this in like an aside in the interview with Will Patillo a couple episodes ago, but like in Gaza, the IDF is using AI systems, which are not, frontier models, but it is reducing oversight and causing, more death. And biological design tools are not language models or frontier models, but they could be used in theory to, discover something. Now, there are, pushback against that, but like I'm just using it as a illustration of like why LLMs.
Yeah. So and like many people have pointed this out to me. It's like AI being used in war is like not new at all. So I think like this is similar to like the slant on like catastrophic terrorism, where it's not so much like it is already a threat that exists. It is like something that people are using, and we're focusing on frontier models because it is the better these models become, the more it increases both the likelihood and the scale of harm that's going to happen from these things. Where like if you scale up the capability of AI systems to be able to do things like more on their own, to have like larger action space and like over longer time horizons, it just makes everything like even worse. And the things that we can build to defend against this, where like for now we have tools like peace talks or like the UN, quote unquote, some people would say this is not really a good tool, but like that's a separate thing. Like all these other like tools at our disposal to prevent the increase of harm that AI gives versus like the defense. This is being like massively outpaced, And like frontier models, I think being much better is the thing that is like pushing this like offense defense balance like off kilter, like massively.
Okay.
And yeah.
I do see aspects of that argument for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The I guess flip side, or at least my flip side, would be, but when we do studies like the one that I am thinking of specifically are the two studies that have been done. Well, one of them we can discredit because it was from OpenAI, and they'll say whatever. But the other one was from Rand, so like an independent organization, and they did like a randomized control trial on what is the marginal risk of allowing language models, like language model access, as opposed to frontier language model access, as opposed to just like Google search, traditional information gathering techniques. And they found no statistical difference between these two in like the tasks that were provided. So I found the studies again and reviewed them, as well as a very recent blog post from Anthropic's Frontier AI Red Team. The original study I'm referring to happened in January of 2024 and is called The Operational Risks of AI in Large-Scale Biological Attacks, Results of a Red Team Study. In it, they tasked teams with the creation of a biological weapon attack plan with and without LLM assistance. The study found that there was no statistically significant difference between the teams' performances. However, the recent Anthropic blog post claims that this notion should be updated. They share two graphs with minimal description, which are said to be indication that their newest models do actually improve performance beyond the internet use baseline. They even cite the RAND study, saying that their experiment warrants an update to the previous findings of the similar study. If I weren't the skeptical bitch that I am, I might be convinced, but there are a couple very important caveats here. Almost none of the details of Anthropic's study were disclosed, meaning that we know nothing about who the participants were, who the graders were, what information the participants were given, etc. One thing we do know, though, is that Anthropic's market research allowed the participants up to 2 days to work on their plan. This is a far cry from having a team of 3 individuals who could each spend up to 80 hours over the course of 7 calendar weeks to come up with their plans. Maybe I'm crazy, but claiming that your study warrants an update to this clearly more rigorous research is fishy as hell. Regardless, I don't think that the informational stages of this threat model are the most effective to lock down, but that opens a whole nother can of worms, so let's get on with it. Especially in the context of current things, like people are, saying, oh, it's not as effective maybe as it's being said to be. So like in that context, what is your thought?
For one thing, the capabilities will only like increase. I think maybe the OpenAI thing you were talking about is like their model card, where is it? Where
they had a similar like randomized control trial thing. I think it was in January of 2024. About biological risk, that is how their LLM like aids biological threats, biological risk threats.
There is a more recent like model card that's come out from like OpenAI, one of OpenAI's more recent models, where it is evaluating it on some like ability to help novices, meaningfully help novices develop biological design or biological weapons. And this was like elevated up a level to be like, could do this. It's raised as like a yellow flag that it is like becoming somewhat more helpful. And as models get better, I would see this trend continue to go up. And by the time that it does, then it's only a matter of like time before like somebody actually does something. And which is why I think like BlueDot has a stream that's called like defensive engineering, which is like trying to help prepare the world in the case when people do use these AI systems and do harm and we're not able to prevent it from doing these things. Then we should at the very least be prepared for the different scenarios that might come up, and one of these things being like biothreats.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess my thought there is like, shouldn't we just like stop it at other points? Because you need a lot of time, and also specific items, like specific access
Yes.
or specific knowledge,
Yes.
to actually execute on an attack like that. And so, yeah, I guess that would be like the thought there. But I guess that's also sort of what you guys are saying, right? Like that's not.
It's not just about like stopping like AI systems. It's about like all the other work that needs to be done to like prevent pandemics from happening. And if like one of the ways that we expect the next pandemic to happen is from like a human released or like a lab experiment gone wrong kind of thing, then we need to be able to have systems that can detect, prevent, and then like contain and stop the spread of this. Similar with like cyber, right?
Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned in the when you were discussing this initially was like as the systems are provided more autonomy, essentially allowed to make like be the decision factor in more things, and it increasingly important or consequential decisions. Isn't the solution to just not do it then?
To just not build the AI systems?
No, just don't use them like that.
Don't use them?
Yeah, no, but like I mean, in the like, if the concern, I guess, is like autonomy, and like, what if a consequential decision is made by an AI system that's not what we want? Like, couldn't we have just required that someone checked on it and okayed it before making that decision?
I guess
human in the loop?
To the spectrum thing, right? Of like how much of the decision is given to the AI system, where like there's like one world where like, oh, the AI does everything and there's like zero human in there, and then there's a world where the step before that's like a human makes like one, like gives the final okay, and then it's like the human is like helped, where a lot of it's like information landscape is all like fed in by AI systems. This is the worry that people have about like AI and like children, right? Where like if all the information that they are receiving is only coming from chatbots, then like essentially whatever bias or like whatever like belief that this chatbot has been encoded with is exactly what's going to like be indoctrinating this child. It's the same thing with like a leader, right? Where like if the tools that they use are like pushing them towards like warfare and like making more like dangerous decisions, that's also really dangerous, even if like technically the human is doing everything. And I think there's like a whole scale of like things to be worried about here, depending on like, especially the more persuasive the AI system is. Like, it doesn't have to be the one like calling the shots. If it's like incredibly good at convincing you to do something that like normally maybe humans wouldn't have done. Or
no, absolutely. And then also just like, if these are controlled by companies, like the companies also have their own bottom line, right? So especially when it's like there are pros and cons to open source and closed source. I think that a very, very significant con to closed source is like we don't have access to the system. We can't just like say, oh, well, put it somewhere else and use the system as is. If you change it, or if you increase the price, or if we discover that you are pushing certain ideals within the outputs, so I think that's also very important to be thinking about, and goes towards the like consolidation of wealth and power. So switching gears again to like just a recent blog post that you wrote, you were saying like we want more people to be in AI safety as advocates. So we want more people to be talking about safety when it comes to AI. why do you think this important, and how can someone start?
Yeah. So for one thing, I think as AI safety started us like with a bunch of people who did research and like very thinkers, um, engineers who like really like to code and are a little bit more like introverted. I think this space has become like a lot of people who like to do the research. They like to do
Yeah.
do the actual like thinking, and there are not as many people in the field who go out into the world and actually talk to people and like build the organizations required to get the recommendations from the papers that they write actually enacted in the world, which is very hard stuff and to be fair, like a very opposite skill to the things that they've been developing, and requires like different kinds of personalities, different kinds of like backgrounds. And the thing that AI safety has been lacking, I think, or is like, it feels like it's in a lot of need, is for people who are able to go and do that. Take the recommendations from these papers and go and like get it to touch grass, like touch reality.
Yeah.
And I think when I was trying to explore like ways that BlueDot might itself do like more public facing advocacy, the thing that I struggled with the most is figuring out what the heck to advocate for. So I think like starting off with like having an idea of like what exactly is the change that you want to see, whether it is like raising the salience of the issue, just like getting more people to be aware of this and like looking around and like saying to their MPs like this is an important issue and that you should go and figure out what to do about it. Maybe that's like one like generally useful approach. Second thing could be to just like do the hard work of thinking of what to advocate for yourself, or like connect with one of these researchers who are doing this like big picture thinking, and then just like offer to help them execute this vision. I think that's what a lot of think tanks produce research like GovAI or CLTR that might be useful in that vein. But I think like with more advocacy in AI safety, it's not just like joining a group that exists. I think there's a lot of space to figure out like for yourself like what needs to be done and to go ahead and do that. It's very like abstract. I know it's like very difficult as well.
No, I totally agree. I guess one thing to add to that from my perspective would be it's okay for it to be local.
Yeah.
Right. It's actually great for it to be local because it makes it more concrete. And, that's how it starts as well. So if you are in a company and they're considering implementing some sort of AI solution, and you just say, hey, I want to be involved, and then bring to the table, safety relevant concerns like, oh, maybe we should have a human in the loop in this decision. That's actually very valuable. And that is part of what you're talking about in addition to, maybe more explicit, like purposeful, very public facing advocacy, just picking something where you're like, my relatives are now starting to use AI, and I sure would like it that I sure would like it if they don't use the systems as a therapy without understanding the consequences and like potential risks, which we don't understand right now. And so I guess that would be a call is like, probably shouldn't do that because there's a lot of research going on about that and possibly very negative consequences. But so I think just having that perspective is like part of what I was interpreting there as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's like one like one small way to do it. I also think that if you also like really like strongly believe that AI, like future AI systems, like the current AI systems are on a trajectory to really change a lot of society in potentially positive or negative ways, and that you want to play a bigger role in it, then I think it is also to do with more like stuff that's more like entrepreneurship, like figuring out, doing the work of like figuring out what is the solution that you want to offer and how do you build that.
So maybe even so like what I said, but then scale that up a bit. Exactly. So it's like what local organization are you doing to do something, or like are you going to a town meeting when they're discussing some AI,
Hmm.
regulation or like
Yeah.
tool that they're planning on using and saying, hey, did we think about
Mm.
this thing? So yeah, going even beyond sort of just the everyday
Yeah.
advocacy and saying what in the free time that I do, given my expertise, where can I contribute to a problem or a potential problem,
Yeah.
or preventing a potential problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I now want to do like a couple of closing questions that I'd like to do. One of them is new though, uh, and that one is, what is your hottest take regarding AI?
Hottest take. You were saying about the AI and therapy thing. I actually
Hmm.
do prefer, like some often like prefer, not prefer to be a strong word, but I do find myself often like choosing to talk to AI, like chatbots about my problems, rather
Hmm.
than like people I know. Like when it comes to like work related issues, or sometimes I have like interpersonal issues with friends, and I don't have a friend on call, I'm like quite happy to just like have a conversation with Claude or ChatGPT
Hmm.
and have
Okay.
it be my little therapy friend.
Yeah. I guess my stance on this, just to clear this up a tiny bit, is for if you really have an understanding of the limitations of the systems, and you are acknowledging like and not anthropomorphizing the systems,
Yeah.
um, then you can make that essentially like educated decision.
Yeah.
Um, the concern comes in for people who don't necessarily have that context, and especially for people who are experiencing more significant conditions.
Mm.
It's not on the patient to uh, diagnose themselves,
Yeah.
but it is on the user to not use the system to treat a condition.
Yeah.
And so, how do we make sense of that?
Yeah.
I think that it puts a very unfair burden on the user. And in the event that the user does not have that context of like what these systems are, what their limitations are, they're not, you know, they're not human beings, and they
Yeah.
also don't have the expertise needed for a lot of the more sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's kind of
yeah,
similar
I
to
guess
like,
that's just like the caveats I like to add in there, but
yeah.
I do see what you're saying as well.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of similar to people like Googling their symptoms, where like with Google at least, you know it's Google. And but with the
Hmm.
chatbot, because they talk, I mean, like, and depends on like what like wrapper you're using. They talk very much like a human, and you're like more likely to believe them because you don't. The interface doesn't look like you're talking to like a search engine. It looks like you're talking to a person, which is
Yeah.
like very dangerous.
Yes. Absolutely. Um, okay. No, that's awesome. I think it's a No, that's interesting. Yeah, I love hearing what people think about that. Next one is like, what is something that grinds your gears or like irritates you about either the AI safety space as a whole, or your work, or anywhere in between?
Hmm. Oh, the thing that grinds my gears. Okay, so I really hate it when I like I'm in a conversation with people talking about AI safety stuff, and then they ask me, "Oh, hey, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I help do like build products and do like ops stuff at BlueDot." And then you can see their face go like just like kind of the light kind of goes out in their eyes, or they like really look like very concerned, and they look at me like I'm a completely foreign beast. And it's honestly quite sad to
Mm.
see this happen because I feel
Yeah,
like we're all working on this similar things, and I think like I solve very interesting problems in my role as well.
I mean,
to,
yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
like maybe different from the research they do. I think this is happening maybe less, or maybe I'm like not paying attention to this as much anymore. But it is like it was like a very sad thing to encounter constantly when I first started working in this space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also a major difficulty that I have, when talking with people like not that I don't work with and I don't associate with commonly. It's like a very toxic sort of behavior pattern that is way more common than it should be. And, like I said earlier, all of the people that are interested in helping make AI go well, essentially, we need ops people. We need marketing people. We need cybersecurity people. Like, you don't need to be the mold. You don't need to fit that mold that is canonical to provide value. And I think that's something that, for a while, and still it is slightly lessened, but I definitely do still hear about it. It's probably lessened for you because also BlueDot is so well known now. And so, like, you say BlueDot and they're like, oh, okay. Like, they actually know who you're talking about. But for someone that said, I do ops not at BlueDot, for example, I think it might be difficult still, especially. Yeah. So, yeah. And then the more optimistic part, what's your favorite part about what you do?
I think it's not so much of like a specific role that I do, but I think it's because at BlueDot we have like a very small team. We're like 4 people, 4 full-time staff. So I kind of just do like whatever is required to get stuff done. And that means that I get to learn how to do a bunch of new things that I've never learned how to do before. Like right now, I'm trying to hire for a technical person at BlueDot. And for me to be able to articulate what success looks like for somebody in this role, I need to learn how to be a software engineer, which is very interesting because I've never been like a full stack engineer or done any like professional software engineering experience before in my life. I've had to learn all these words that I've never heard of before. It's like a completely different language, but it's also very exciting. So I'm very happy.
Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah. Li-Lian, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to put this out there. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, you too. It's like great to reconnect and to chat.
See, I told you that she's great to talk to. Before I bounce, it's worth noting that I have it on high authority that BlueDot is going to be hiring multiple positions in the near future. If what we talked about in this episode resonated with you, I strongly suggest you check out their listings. Even if you're listening in the future, maybe they've opened up more opportunities, so might as well check. If you've enjoyed this show, consider leaving a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. Not only will I read it and appreciate it, but it may also help others find the podcast and in turn make AI a little bit safer. I was just in Florida to see my girlfriend's grandparents, so I will end with the topical, "See you later, alligator."